to You're All Doomed, the podcast that is making its way through Jason Goes to Hell the final Friday, 13 minutes at a time. I'm your mystical dagger-wielding host, Greg.
And I'm Brian the Wonder Llama.
And this segment begins with Jessica and Steven arguing in the car and ends with Creighton Duke having just fallen through the floor.
We get a quick shot of Jessica pushing Steven out of the car and getting behind the steering wheel, and she drives off, leaving Steven behind on the side of the road. And then we cut back to the police station, where Sheriff Landis is so broken up over the murder of his girlfriend less than 24 hours ago that he's still at the station doing paperwork. Jessica storms into his office and tells him that Steven killed Robert, and she says that he's out on Lake Road past the Myers place.
Ugh. So the police alert all units that, that's where Steven should be found, and the first car to arrive is actually his pal Randy. There's a little bit of a tussle, kind of not quite a slap fight, but not a knockdown, drag-out brawl. Although there's a pretty comical headbutt to Steven's forehead, which is not the way to headbutt somebody because you're just going to hurt yourself as badly. He should have smacked Steven in the nose. And then they half-heartedly pull their guns on each other. But Steven surrenders when he finds out that Jessica is, in fact, at the police station. That's where he wants to be, too.
And back at the police station, American Case File host Robert Campbell / Jason Voorhees storms into the station with some of the worst makeup I've ever seen. In addition to blood smeared across his face, he has black painted around his eyes, so he looks like a raccoon. And he's still wearing that white dress shirt, tie, and suspenders, instilling that classic Friday the 13th fear we've grown to know and love.
I want to know how he knew Jessica would be at the police station. Did he receive the APB? Or, did he just deduce that that's where she might go?
That's a good question, because he just got ran over at the Voorhees house. That was the last time we saw Robert, right?
Yeah.
And then... and then Steven and Jessica took off in the car, and then Jessica took the car, leaving Steven. So also, Steven probably would have seen Robert on his way to the police station, like marching down the road or something, because he probably took the same route as they did. But yeah, I have no idea how he would know to head back to the police station. I feel like, if anything, he would want to stay at the Voorhees house, but that doesn't work from a narrative standpoint, so...
Maybe he's got some sort of psychic connection now that he's physically touched Jessica or something. He can always know right where she is, although that doesn't explain how he got there so quickly.
Well, he's got Jason's teleporting powers now.
Yeah, true. We see the sheriff is on the phone in a tight close-up, and in the background we see host guy grab Jessica and smash a lady cop's head into a locker. The lady cop, who was apparently named Officer Ryan, was played by Madeline Curtis. Her first credit is as a nurse in Eyes of a Stranger, which was a 1981 movie written by Ron Kurz, who we know from parts 2, 3, and 4. She was actually a cheerleader for the New England Patriots at one point. She is multilingual and actually has several graduate degrees. She sounds kind of cool.
It's appropriate that a former cheerleader met her demise by having her head smashed into a locker.
Yeah. The sheriff turns around and sees what's happening just as host guy is giving Jessica the worm kiss. Running toward them, he's stopped in his tracks when the host guy smacks a hand into the sheriff's nose, presumably driving bone into brain, but at the very least we know he's unconscious because he hits the deck. Jessica takes off in a sprint, and I kind of realized here that I have a little bit of a thing for leggy girls in police uniforms, probably thanks to Sergeant Callahan from Police Academy.
Steven then does an utterly ridiculous jump in the air that allows him to move his handcuffed arms from behind his back to the front. I don't even know if this is possible. I'm too old to even attempt this stunt, but...
So is he.
Right. But maybe, he earned his Letterman jacket in gymnastics or something, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but it just looks ridiculous. It just looks like something that, like a ninja would do in a movie to break free from their, bindings.
Which would have been cool in a ninja movie, but in this movie it's a little bit preposterous.
But this allows Steven to grab Randy's gun again, and he points it at Robert, and he takes 8 shots to the chest and 1 straight through his forehead.
That one's pretty cool. I like the splatter against the wall behind Robert. But, again, it's sort of, I forget a lot of the segments in this movie because we're in this kind of nondescript hallway. It's not scary. It's brightly lit. It's just kind of this... bland action set piece that, has a moment or two that's cool, but is very forgettable. Another couple of cops come running out of the men's room at the same time, like peep hells. They check on Randy, who is on the floor, grabbing his wrist and yelling, "He's breathing!" And then host guy, who has awakened from his headshot, walks up and conks their heads together with a surprising amount of gore.
Yeah, I'm not sure how bonking their heads together causes both of their faces to be torn to shreds, like they were just run over by a lawnmower. It doesn't align with what's going on. Like if you want to like smash their heads together and have them caved in or something, that's fine. But like their faces are completely shredded from just like one quick bonk of their heads. It's very strange.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't really line up with the action that we just saw. These 2 cops were played by Mark and Brian, the radio show hosts. There's a third cop nearby. It was a desk sergeant that we got a glimpse of earlier, and it turns out he's played by the director, Adam Marcus. He runs off like a coward, only to be cold-cocked by a fist coming out of one cell. Creighton Duke, baby.
Back at Joey's diner, Steven and Jessica have apparently made up because they've arrived to pick up baby Stephanie. Because, remember, Jessica thought it was best to leave her baby at a fucking diner while all this was going on. But before Steven and Jessica can get to the storage room, Joey points a gun at them.
Yeah, I love how she's suddenly a big fan of the baby. She talks about, no one's going to take that little ray of sunshine. So somehow in the intervening hours, she must have been hanging out in the storeroom and that baby, like I said, is damn cute, and it won her over. I thought that was cute.
Joey tells her husband, who she affectionately calls Pookie, to call the police station, but the phone line is dead. So then she tells her son Ward to go to the station to see what's going on.
She gives him a gun, and when he tucks it into his pants, she says, "Watch the willy." I thought that was kind of funny.
Jessica tries to wrestle the gun away from Joey, and in the process, the gun goes off. And for reasons unknown, we get this weird first-person perspective of the bullet flying across the diner very slowly and into the circuit breaker in the next room. I have no idea what the point of that shot was.
I think it was a very Sam Raimi-esque shot. We've established these guys are fans of Evil Dead, and that felt very Sam Raimi to me.
It was just the slowest bullet I've ever seen in my life.
This, of course, causes the lights to go out. Outside, Ward the busboy has encountered host guy and had his arm snapped in half in a pretty delightfully gory shot. He's then hurled against the glass door, scaring Hermione Granger, who has apparently started working at the diner. Like, seriously, we've never seen this person before, and we never see her again. Ward was played by Adam Cranner. He has no other acting credits, though he is listed as a security supervisor for this movie, and for some reason got a thanks on Jason X. Host guy enters the diner, slams a patron onto the bar, while Steven starts firing. Vicky, the other waitress, whips out a sawed-off shotgun and blows host guy away, also tragically hitting some other random customer in the background. Everybody scatters. Jessica and Steven run into the storeroom, but the baby is missing. Instead, in the Del Monte box, there's a helpful note from Duke telling whoever reads it to come to the Voorhees house alone. Does that mean Steven's not allowed to come too? And my question is, what if Vicky was the first person to go back there and see this note? Maybe she'd read it and secretly want some deep dicking from Creighton Duke, and she'd be awfully disappointed when she got to the Voorhees house.
Yeah, or even like Joey or Pookie. What if they saw it first? Back out front of the diner, Joey and Pookie are unloading on Robert with a barrage of gunfire. Why do they have so many guns at this diner? But despite the rain of gunfire, all this is doing is making Robert's shirt dirtier. Robert, doing his best T-1000 impression, grabs Pookie and shoves his face in the fry vat, which is filled with bubbling oil. Joey attacks Robert from behind, but he elbows her in the face so hard that her entire mouth caves in, killing her. I really like this kill because the look on her face looks like she just ate like the world's most sour, like Sour Patch Kid or something. Like everything, like her entire face is just like caved in like a raisin.
Yeah, it was a great kill, and they did a nice job with the makeup. I love how it really looks like her teeth and jaw were shoved further back into her skull. It's great. Pookie was played by Leslie Jordan, who has been all over the place from 1980s TV onward. He's still working a lot and reportedly shared a cell with Robert Downey Jr. one time when Leslie himself was busted for a DUI. Joey was played by Rusty Schwimmer, who was in Paul Thomas Anderson's Dirk Diggler story, a 1988 short film precursor to Boogie Nights. She was also in Highlander 2, The Quickening, which no one should ever watch, and was in Twister as the mom at the beginning. She's still working steadily and is apparently best friends with Virginia Madsen and is also close with Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman.
She was also in The Perfect Storm, so she has a love for weather-related movies. For some reason, Jessica's standing next to a window in the storage room that I guess leads to the kitchen where Robert just was, because Robert smashes through the window and grabs Jessica. But I have no idea what they're even doing in their room. They're just standing around, like, picking their nose. And I feel like Jessica would be in a hurry to find her kidnapped baby, but she's just standing there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're just trying to kind of plan their next move or something, but you're right. It's kind of ridiculous. Fortunately, Vicky the waitress saves the day by shooting Robert a couple of more times, but her fate is sealed when she runs out of shotgun shells. She instead impales him with some rebar, so he grabs her and pulls her onto the rebar, impaling her too. She's able to gasp, "Go to hell," as he grabs her head and crushes it with a spectacular gout of blood. This is kind of my favorite moment of the whole movie. I love that Vicky was secretly a badass, and she went out like a hero. We didn't see a whole lot of her in this movie, so it's a little bit out of nowhere, but it was pretty badass. Vicky was played by Allison Smith, who played Annie, the orphan, on Broadway for several years, and played one of the daughters, Jenny, on Kate and Allie, which I occasionally watched because I recognized the little kid from Mr. Mom. She's been on lots of TV, was prominent on The West Wing, and played Patricia Krenwinkel, one of the Manson girls, in the 2004 version of Helter Skelter. She's still around, and most recently showed up in the revival of Will and Grace. Something I really don't like about this whole body swapping shit that we're forced to sit through is that we're seeing a lot of, quote, Jason's facial expressions. And like in this instance, we see Robert the host enjoying this kill way too much. It's a little bit unpleasant, actually. Usually we just see the blank, expressionless mask that Jason is wearing, and that kind of gives it a level of detachment as if he's not relishing what he's doing. He's just doing it like the shark in Jaws. So I don't really enjoy seeing all these characters' facial expressions. And there's some debate among the cast about whether or not they should have tried to mirror some of Kane Hodder's body language from when he would play the character. He feels that for the sake of consistency, that even the people Jason possessed should move like Jason when he's in their bodies. And I kind of agree with that, but it seems like the other actors were sort of like, Kane takes it too seriously. We shouldn't bother doing that. Not that it would have necessarily been easy to tell, but I'm kind of on Kane Hodder's side for this. In any case, Vicky's final onslaught has apparently wiped out the host guy, and he conks out on the floor. Stephen and Jessica take a moment to close Vicky's eyes. At this point, I'd like to remind you, Brian, of our pact. If I ever die in your arms with my eyes open, only close one of my eyes.
You got it, pal. I also like how Stephen still believes that pointing a gun at Robert is going to help. So as like Robert is lying motionless on the ground, Stephen's just pointing the gun like, I don't know, maybe this will do something this time. After the 35 gunshots he's already taken, this 36th one will do the trick. As Stephen's trying to figure out what to do, Jessica runs outside and jumps into a pickup and drives away. I have no idea whose car this is, but it's a 1984 Toyota RN50.
Yeah, I love that she left his ass behind.
I wonder if it's the random customer that got killed.
Oh, that could be. Oh, he must have left the keys in it. Stephen figures out where she's going when we get an unnecessary voiceover from Creighton Duke reading the note that he's written aloud. Stephen then turns to see a machete on the wall in the back room of the restaurant. I wondered if it was like some sort of pork carving knife or something.
Right. Well, we know they had shotguns and, tons of handguns, so why wouldn't they have a machete mounted on the wall of this small town diner?
Jessica arrives at the darkened Voorhees mansion. Creighton Duke is already there. He's casually holding the baby and wielding a knife. He says that Jason could have jumped into anyone but her, but isn't that exactly what Jason is trying to do?
Yeah, right. Because all the bodies that he's been jumping into so far are diseased or whatever, and they're not going to last very long, but the only way that he can survive is if he jumps into the body of one of the Voorhees, which is either Jessica or Stephanie, which would be hilarious if it was Stephanie. But yeah, you're right. That's exactly what he's trying to do. But I don't know. I guess Duke knows better than any of us.
I do think it's funny that the baby is apparently a racist because we've seen her interacting with everyone else in this movie and smiling. The one time she's being held by a black man, she's kind of fussing and crying a little bit.
As Jessica's holding baby Stephanie in her arms, Duke tosses a normal-looking knife in the air toward Jessica. Despite the fact that she's holding a baby in her arms, she's able to catch the knife in midair. Would you ever try to catch a knife if anyone threw at you, period, let alone if you were holding a baby?
Yeah, no, I would probably just, turn my back to protect the baby and then move out of the way or something. People in this movie seem to have ninja skills.
But this is no normal knife. As soon as Jessica catches it, it starts glowing and turns into a jewel-encrusted dagger. Duke recites the stupid, "Only through a Voorhees can he be reborn" nonsense, but this time he adds that only a Voorhees can kill Jason with this stupid dagger. So we finally get to set our eyes on the famous enchanted Voorhees dagger that we've heard so much about in the last 8 movies.
Yeah, I mean, again, where is any of this coming from? There was nothing remotely supernatural in this series until part 6, when with Jason's resurrection, Tommy then had to, find a way of killing him by returning him to his original resting place, blah, blah, blah. But even that was pretty low key. There was, Pamela's shrine in part 2, which was pseudo-mystical, but that was more to represent Jason's warped psychology about keeping her alive than it was actually some sort of incantation that he was preparing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of indefensible things in this movie, but, I'm willing to somewhat allow the sort of demon worms or whatever that possess the bodies. Like, all right, if that's what we're doing, I'll play along. But now there's magic involved. I mean, knives that are turning into magic daggers in front of our very eyes. And I mean, it's like Prince Adam turning into He-Man or something. It's so stupid.
Back at the diner, a lone police officer has arrived to investigate the scene and is grabbed by Robert, the host. Presumably, he will transfer his Jason consciousness into a new body, so we don't see any more of Robert, the TV show host. He was played by Stephen Culp. Did a ton of television in the 90s and beyond. He also played a character named Scudder in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I'll have to keep my eyes peeled for that. More recently, he was in the American Horror Story 1984 season, which is kind of a throwback to the slasher genre, so I have that on my list of must-watch.
His character was named as a tribute to Robert Englund, who played Freddy Krueger, and Bruce Campbell, who played Ash from Evil Dead. We head back to the Voorhees house, and a car pulls up, and Jessica thinks it's Steven, and she's really excited. But I don't understand why she'd be excited, because she was the one that ditched Steven at the diner.
Yeah, good point.
Duke warns Jessica that Jason could have jumped into anyone's body by now, so she can't trust whoever walks through the door. And just then, Duke falls through. I can't tell if it's a trap door or just rotted floorboards. It's too dark to know for sure, but he falls through the floor down to the basement level.
Yeah, the flooring seems really weak in this house. Steven fell through one, earlier in the closet, so I get the sense that this place is kind of falling apart. That's pretty much where this wraps up. There were 5 deaths this time that we know of. The lady police officer, Ward the busboy, a random diner patron, Shelby, a.k.a. Pookie, and Joey, the proprietor of the diner.
To hear more about my 2-for-1 burger idea to commemorate Joey B's death, tune in next week for another episode of
You're All Doomed.